The Monday, December 2nd edition of the Lunch Break. We welcome you in. The calendar has turned over. It is December. Thanksgiving in the rearview mirror. Holiday season full steam ahead. And we are full steam ahead on this Monday edition of the program. A Reaction Monday here for you. A lot to unpack from what was an extended weekend. We last spoke to you last Wednesday. A lot has happened in the football world in particular since then. And if you think there's any other place that we are going to start today's show other than being extremely excited about where Arizona State is going this weekend, you can take the bet that you made and you can rip up the ticket because you know exactly where we're starting today's show.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
Oh, trust me. I have plenty of thoughts on what the Arizona Cardinals did yesterday. Trust me, we got a lot of time to get into that. But we're going to be positive here to start the week. And we are going to talk about what happened down in Tucson over the weekend as the Arizona State Sun Devils finished off their regular season. They end their regular season with a victory over the University of Arizona. They end their regular season 10-2. And they end their regular season with one more game left to play because they will be going to AT&T Stadium this Saturday. They will be participating in the Big 12 championship game. As they complete the task, they win. They don't see that scenario play out where BYU loses and then a bunch of other stuff happens and ASU wins and is left out of the Big 12 championship game. I did share this with a buddy. I outlined for this to you, I believe it was last Monday or Tuesday's show. I shared with everybody the unique scenario where ASU could win the football game this past weekend and be left out of the Big 12 championship game. I have a buddy, also went to ASU, and I told him this scenario. And he is he's in the sports betting space. He is in the sports gambling space. And so he's always looking for a bet. And I told him about this. And he was like, this feels like the perfect emotional hedge bet, where if I lose, I'm not going to be that upset about losing the bet because that means ASU is going to the Big 12 championship game. And if I win the bet and ASU's out, I at least get some money out of the deal. It's the perfect emotional hedge. And then he proceeded to send me the screenshot of the ticket in which he put together that parlay that we were all talking about last week that would see ASU win but be left out of the Big 12 championship game. We did not cross that line. We did not have that scenario play out. It will now be Arizona State against Iowa State with a trip to the college football playoff on the line. That is what ASU has played their way into with their win over the weekend. And it was a fun weekend. We warned about this on Wednesday's show. If I remember correctly, we told everybody that, hey, we weren't going to say it out loud, but if you leaned on UofA early, it could get sideways and it could be a crooked number. And I didn't want to say the number, but I was thinking 70-7. That was what I was thinking in my head, but I didn't want to put that out there. I didn't want to put any bad vibes out there by talking up the game so much and talking up how I thought ASU could be in blowout territory. But you just felt it, right? That team down south not going anywhere quickly. They've decided to keep Brett Brennan. Sure, we'll save that for another time. But they made that decision to keep Brett Brennan for another season. But I said yet on Wednesday's show that if they just leaned on U of A early, if they got out to a 2-score lead in the early going of that game, you felt like things could get out of hand. And boy, did they get out of hand. 35-0 at halftime. It is a 49-7 win for Arizona State. You want me to read the numbers? Sam Leavitt, 291, 3 touchdowns. Cam Scatterbo, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 177 yards rushing. Jordan Tyson, 8 catches, 143 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, it was everybody you expect to show up in a big game for the Sun Devils showed up in a big game for the Sun Devils. And the biggest takeaway that I had from all of this is we questioned if the pressure at any point would get to this team. Because up until, I want to say, the Kansas State game, this was a pipe dream. It was a thought that was out there. It was mathematically possible. It was something that deserved some airwaves, but it didn't deserve to dominate the airwaves, them running the table and them going to the Big 12 championship game. Because up until that point, it had been a fun season. It had been an enjoyable season. Kenny Dillingham and company had checked the box for what we wanted to see from this program in year 2 ahead of schedule. Even Kenny would tell you that. It was fun. It didn't matter what the end result was. We were having a good time. We were seeing the progress that we wanted to see from the university. Things had the upward trajectory. And then we got into the Kansas State game, and you started to look at the way the math laid out. You said, okay, well, if they win and BYU loses against Kansas, that seemed a bit far-fetched. If that happened, the snowball could start. The snowball could see ASU take control of their fate in the Big 12. And that's exactly what happened a couple of weeks ago. They beat Kansas State, Kansas beat BYU, and that opened up us to have this conversation for the last couple of weeks. So we wondered. There was no pressure going into that Kansas State game. There was pressure coming out of that Kansas State game. There was pressure. BYU, UofA on the calendar. You knew if you beat BYU, it opened up everything. It opened up all of the pathways. It opened up you to have, all but one scenario, full control of your fate in the Big 12. That was where the pressure was felt because it was a BYU team that was coming to your building. It was a BYU team that had just recently lost to Kansas. It was a BYU team over the last month that hadn't been playing good football. They were there to be had. All the pressure was on ASU. You check that box. Biggest game since Notre Dame showed up in 2014. Great. You check that box, you win the game. Now the pressure gets turned up to another level because not only is it the last piece of the puzzle, and one would argue you did the hard part. You beat a ranked Kansas State team. You beat a ranked BYU team. You did the hard part to enter that game on Saturday 9-2. Somebody else would argue the hard part was right in front of you because it was a rivalry game. You were going on the road. You knew that if there was one game any of those guys were going to get up for this season, it was going to be the Territorial Cup, and you just had all of the pressure in the world. It was the only game all season that had as much pressure as that game had on Saturday. They didn't have that pressure when they faced Mississippi State early in the season. They didn't have that pressure when they took on Cincinnati without their quarterback. They didn't have that pressure. They had that pressure on Saturday. And you know what that game taught us a lot about this team? They embraced that pressure. They've embraced that pressure for the last month. They've embraced that pressure when they went to Kansas State. They embraced that pressure when they faced BYU at home and had to hold off a fourth quarter comeback. And they embraced that pressure in a rivalry game because it's easy. It doesn't matter how bad of a season you're having. Did you see what Michigan did to Ohio State over the weekend? They closed at 19.5-point underdogs. They won the game outright on the road. Rivalry games, you throw the record books out the window. I don't care what your record is in the regular season, good, bad, or indifferent. Rivalry games, long-standing rivalry games that happen every single year, like ASU, UofA, like we saw with Michigan and Ohio State, it doesn't matter how poorly a team has played throughout the course of the season. When that game shows up on the calendar, the teams get ready for that game. ASU was more than ready for that game. And they got the perfect start. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and they just leaned on him in the second quarter. Just leaned on him. 3 touchdowns later, it was 35-0. The crowd was out of it. They probably were resigned to something that they probably knew in the back of their head when they walked into the building was certainly on the table. And for an ASU team that under Kenny Dillingham had to right the wrong of what was last year, 59-23? U of A came all the way up here and beat you up. I was in the building for the game. Was not enjoyable. First territorial. Now, as somebody who went to school here, I've lived here for 12 years. Last year was the first Territorial Cup game I had been in person. When I was at school, I would go back home to the East Coast around Thanksgiving. This game was always played Thanksgiving weekend. I was never here for it. So last year I got a chance to go for the first time. Boy, was it a sour taste in my mouth. That was my first experience. This year, a lot better. Was not in the building, but it was a lot better because ASU has finished a double-digit win regular season. They are 10-2. They finished the Big 12 7-2. And they will now go to Arlington, Texas. They will go to Jerry World. They will go to AT&T Stadium, and they will take on Iowa State with the Big 12 title on the line, and more importantly, a spot in the college football playoff on the line as well. Don't worry. We have you covered on all of this the remainder of the show today. We will get back into this all week long. We will get you ready for this because this is the biggest game this team has played in I don't know how long. This is bigger than I think any Pac-12 championship game that they've played in recent vintage because the college football playoff is right there. It is within an arm's reach, and after what you saw on Saturday, how can you not feel like the sky is the limit for this team to make the college football playoff, and who knows at that point what would happen. So what a great weekend it was for ASU to go down there and really just take care of business. Was never in doubt. My fiance left with our daughter, went to the movie. She came back around halftime. She was like, how's the game going? I said, it's 35-0. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah, we can do whatever we want the rest of the day. We're fine. This game is over. It was over at 14-0. On the other side, the Cardinals had a chance yesterday to keep themselves right in the mix. Instead, they've opened the door for us to ask a lot of questions. That's next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday weekend. Hope you enjoyed time with friends, family, loved ones. Hope you enjoyed the football. You enjoyed the time away. We're excited to be back. We're fired up for what is a big week here in this town with the Cardinals having a really important game on Sunday coming up against the Seattle Seahawks, which we will cover from all of the angles throughout the course of this week. We've got ASU playing in the Big 12 championship game. We've got the Suns kind of back full strength and then immediately not back to full strength. We'll discuss that here today on the show. So a lot to get to. MLB hot stove feels like it's starting to sizzle a little bit, and the Diamondbacks maybe will be players here sooner rather than later. So we've got a lot to do here on the show. It's Cyber Monday, and what I learn on a Cyber Monday here today is I learn all of the places that have my email address because I get all of the advertisements into my email of all of the deals that everybody is running today. And I'm here to tell you, it's the easiest way for me to just clean up my subscriptions and be like, oh, I don't want any emails from you anymore. Unsubscribe to this email list. That is what Cyber Monday is for me. Not a lot of purchasing happening here today during breaks. A lot of cleaning up the email box today. That's what is going on. Now, Producer Dylan would love to be able to do that, but he's down a computer in that studio. So I don't know if you can see it on the wide shot on the YouTube, and this is a cheap plug. Here, how about this? You got all these Cyber Monday deals? I got a free Cyber Monday deal here for you. Download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take us with you wherever you go. That's for free. You can also subscribe to us on the YouTube side of things, KDUS AM 1060. You can catch the video version of the show. And I don't know if the wide shot does it justice, but Producer Dylan in there has an entire just container in front of him that is blocking his ability to access the control panel because one of the computers in there is down. Now, We're on the air. Everything's okay. It's a secondary computer that we use to be able to search things up on the internet. It's basically producer Dylan's research computer. So he's down his research computer today, and there's just stuff everywhere. I'm surprised that people aren't coming in and out of that room here today to be able to work on it. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. But if you want to join us on the YouTube side of things, you can. KDUS AM 1060 over there. Anything to get me from having to not talk about what happened yesterday for the Arizona Cardinals, the better. But we will get into it because I have a lot of takes, a lot of thoughts from this game yesterday as the Cardinals had a 19-6 lead late into the third quarter and found themselves losing the football game 23-22. Minnesota takes their first lead of the game with 1:13 to go after Aaron Jones catches a pass and goes into the end zone. They take a 23-22 lead, and that was the first lead that Minnesota took. It was the only lead they took, but it was the only lead that mattered because it was the one that led the Vikings to win this football game 23-22. And it was about as bad of a weekend as you could get for the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams won. You had the Seahawks take care of business against the New York Jets. The only thing that would have made it a worse weekend was if San Francisco could show up against Buffalo, but that clearly didn't happen. So the Cardinals moved to 6-6, and they now are one full game behind Seattle. A really important game coming up this Sunday. But let's try to get through all of this, and it's why I'm glad we have 2 hours here today to do this, because there are so many different layers to this onion. There are so many different angles that we can take here. And where I think we need to start is this offense was broken again yesterday. For the second straight week, this offense couldn't find a rhythm. And they did it against Seattle, and they only kicked a couple of field goals. And their offense stalled out, and they weren't able to put a ton of points on the board. This week against Minnesota, they were able to get deeper into Minnesota territory, and they were able to turn it into 3. But once again, they just stalled out over and over and over again. You look at their 3 field goal drives in the first half. And I think it tells the story of an offense that could move the ball between the 20s, but once they got down into the red zone, things kind of just shrunk on them. 11 plays, 57 yards to start the game. Field goal. 32-yard field goal. Second quarter, 11 plays, 71 yards, 31-yard field goal. To end the half, 12 plays, 64 yards, a 24-yard field goal. All 3 of their field goals in the first half, all their drives inside of 35 yards. They got down there. They couldn't punch it in for the second straight week. An offense that just wasn't operating at full capacity. An offense that stuff was just off. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. caught the touchdown in this game, but it just felt like all game him and Kyler were off. It felt like the protection was off. Kyler was running around a bunch. We talked about the 5 sacks that he took a week ago. It was only 1 this week, and the 1 came late in the game, but it felt like he was constantly running around, scrambling, trying to make things happen. An offense that running the ball was pretty successful. James Conner, 17 carries for 68 yards. We'll get to James Conner. He had a pretty good weekend, even though the Cardinals lost. We'll talk about that here sometime in hour number 1. I think the close hour number 1 is where we'll get to that. Kyler Murray rushed for 48 yards on the ground, so a better running output than we saw a week ago. But the 2 picks from Kyler, the struggles in the red zone, they just seemed off again. And unfortunately, this is not the time of year where you can be off. You can't be off against a division rival in Seattle. In a game that, despite being off, you could have won. You can't be off in a game where they were up 19-6 late in the third quarter. So an offense that wasn't doing a whole lot, that up until the touchdown, when they took the 19-6 lead, had kicked 4 field goals. So you'd kicked 4 field goals. Your offense wasn't doing a whole lot. You score your 1 touchdown that you get offensively in the game. You have a 19-6 lead. And then you get outscored 17-3 the rest of the game. And I think the decision that people are going to look back on is the field goal that they kicked with a couple of minutes to go. What was that, 3:20 to go in the game to take the 22-16 lead instead of potentially trying to really go for it. Because at that point, a field goal when you're up 19-6, there's not a lot of time. I don't know if Minnesota would have tried for the touchdown. They would have probably just played for the field goal. There was at least a little bit of time left, but they would have had to have gone a large distance. So you could have made the case of trying to go for it, trying to punch it in for a touchdown that would have won the game. The field goal, all it did was it forced them to go the length of the field, and if they went the length of the field, They were going to beat you anyway with the extra point. So you didn't really understand the decision there. I'm not going to get too critical of it. You have a 19-6 lead on the road. You made the decision in this game with the way that you played that you were going to put this on the defense. You were going to ask the defense to win you this football game. And you gave them a 19-6 lead with 4 minutes and 37 seconds left in the third quarter. They had a 19-6 lead. You get outscored 17-3 the remainder of the game. That's it. That's the ball game. It's right there. It is exactly what we warned you about with this Minnesota team. Because despite not looking great against Jacksonville and kicking 4 field goals and winning, not looking great against the Colts, not looking great against the Titans, not looking great against the Bears the week prior where the Bears came storming back and forced overtime, what did we warn you about on Wednesday's show? This team finds ways to win. This team can play their worst football, and yet they are still going to be in it in the fourth quarter. It's what has made them such a hard team to bet for or against. By the way, the spread on this game was Minnesota minus 3.5, so they didn't cover the spread. But we said going into the game, they're 9-2, and they're not on the level of the Eagles. They're not on the level of the Chiefs, the Lions. They're not on that level. Yet you have to respect them because they find ways to win. They're gritty. They've been in these close games. They just know how to navigate these minefields. You know who doesn't look like they know how to navigate these minefields? Jonathan Gannon and Kyler Murray don't look like they can navigate the minefields of a close game late where you have to have it. Minnesota certainly looked like a team that, despite down 19-6, never panicked, never wavered, just took care of business, got the touchdown to close the third quarter, then started the fourth quarter with a field goal, got it within 3. And then when they had to have it, with 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go, they went on an 8-play, 70-yard drive, carved up the Cardinals' defense, and took the lead, and then their defense held. That's what happened. And I want to talk today about Kyler Murray. I want to have a Kyler Murray conversation because I think something that we put to the side, that we shelved, that we said was not going to be a conversation, I think, unfortunately, is going to come back out. It's like that old box of clothes that you forgot about in the attic. It's going to come out today. And you're like, oh, I forgot we had that. That's what is going to be today with Kyler Murray because there's a conversation that I think has to be had, a question that needs to be asked. Because it was all there for you yesterday. It was all there. 19-6 in the third quarter, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. Your defense had been playing well up until that point. You had decided going into this game, clearly your methodology was we're going to take the points. We're going to trust our defense. It's who we are as a team. It's who we are as a head coach. It's what our mantra is. And you had a 19-6 lead, and it evaporated. And instead of being 7-5, tied with Seattle going into this game, you are now 1 game back of Seattle. They already have a win against you. You have now lost 2 in a row. It puts all the pressure on Sunday's game. All of it. You thought last Sunday was pressure? You thought yesterday was pressure? If this team is going to make a playoff run, if this team is going to win this division, and by the way, San Francisco is just opening the door for you. They're not playing well. They probably just lost Christian McCaffrey for the year. They're done. They're out. So you've got the Rams, who are right there with you at 6-6, and Seattle. Nobody's running away with it. Nobody's 10-2 with winning the division. It's all there right in front of you. Win close competitive football games. You were in one last week. You lost. You were ahead by 2 scores this week. You lost. At some point, you got to look in the mirror. That's on you as a team. You're supposed to be able to navigate not playing your best football and finding a way to win against Seattle. You are supposed to navigate having a 19-6 lead on the road with your defense. That's supposed to travel. That's supposed to be the thing that keeps you in football games. And it abandoned you in the fourth quarter yesterday as you fall to 6-6. On the other side, we got to go back to last Thursday. We got to go back to last Friday. We got to get to the games yesterday. It is the full NFL Rewind. We do it next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. We appreciate you joining us here on this Monday edition of the program. 480-864-1060 is the number if you want to join us. Got you till 1 o'clock here today on a Football Reaction Monday. And it wouldn't be a Football Reaction Monday if we didn't go around the NFL. Producer Dylan, I need to ask you in advance here. I will play the music, but I'm asking you in advance here. We might need a little extra runway today, okay? We might have to go, I know you like to keep us on schedule here. You like to keep me, you're the ringleader here, okay? You make sure we're on schedule. We might have to go off schedule here because I got a lot of thoughts specifically about this first game. And I don't know if it's going to take the whole segment or a couple of minutes. So I'm just asking you to bear with me and we might have to break a little late here for the NFL Rewind. So let's get into the Week 13 NFL Rewind. We're going to go back. It was last Thursday. You woke up early. You were getting yourself ready for Thanksgiving. And you threw on Bears and Lions. And maybe you followed the Schubert 6. The Schubert 6 that told you, we love the over in this game. Love it. Love Bears Lions over 48.5. And you're watching that game, and I got to tell you, the first half wasn't feeling great. Didn't like our chances. Lions offense not doing enough. Bears offense doing nothing. Just didn't feel like we were going to get there. It was 16-0 at halftime. And then we had a 27-point second half. And then, because I didn't just have that, I had some other stuff. I had the Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime touchdown. I had Jahmyr Gibbs things. I had some other stuff that I was cooking. I was rooting for some stuff. And Bears had the ball. They're driving down the field. They very quickly, with a timeout in their back pocket, get into field goal range. I'm thinking this is great. 23-23. We're at 46 points. Unless the game ends in a tie, we can't lose. A field goal, we get to 49. We're celebrating, I believe that was our 4-point play for the weekend. We'd be feeling great. I was excited. No, it was our 4-point play that we lost. And I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. A game that I thought we were out at halftime. We got a huge fourth quarter. We're going to overtime. It doesn't matter what happens. Getting greedy, you're thinking Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown to win it in overtime. We catch both bets. Then what happened, everybody? Then what happened? The Bears bared. Matt Eberflus, who no longer has a job because of this, just didn't call a timeout. Let his quarterback snap the ball with like 5 seconds left and take a shot at the end zone. Time ran out. The Bears didn't even get to attempt the field goal. Now listen, I know what you're going to say. Chris, the Bears, did you not watch what happened against the Packers a couple of weeks ago where they missed the field goal to win the football game? I'm aware. It was not a gimme. It was not a guarantee. We still had to, but at least give me the chance. At least give me the opportunity. Because if you miss the field goal, I can at least be upset at the kicker. I can't be upset at stupidity. I mean, you didn't even get an attempt off. You did all the hard work to get down there, and then with that, not like you completed a pass and you ran out of time. I've seen that 3 times every week. You had a timeout in your back pocket, and you're just standing there on the sidelines, arms crossed, just watching just chaos ensue in front of you. It was the meme of the dog sitting at the table. This is fine with the fire. That was Matt Eberflus. Just everything's okay. Nothing to see here. And then, which is, I think, the thing that got him fired, he proceeded to double down in the post-game press conference and say, oh, no, I thought we handled it well. Thought we did fine. Are you kidding me? You had a timeout in your back pocket with a chance to force the game into overtime. You did the hard work to get down there. You did the hard part. The Lions win 23-20. They have a 10-game winning streak. They're now 11-1. And we lost our 4-point play because of it. So if you think this is sour grapes because of the Schubert 6, you're absolutely right. I was watching this game, and we were at friend's house. We had gotten there. The game was concluding, and I turned the game on. And I'll be honest, I'll be the first person to raise my hand. I was being antisocial. They're like, what are you rooting for? Because they know what I do for a living. They're like, oh, you're watching this for work? I'm like, no. I'm watching this because I got the over. That's what I'm watching it for. If we didn't have this game, it's just background noise. We're fine. I'll catch the highlights. We're good. No. I had a bet on the game. I had the over. And the Bears had some of the worst clock management skills I've seen in a really long time. Now, I'll tell you, there was another team this weekend that had the complete reverse. They had excellent game management skills. We'll get to them a little bit later on here. The Cowboys beat the Giants 27-20. I think this game was everything we told you it was going to be when we did the look ahead on Wednesday. That, yes, it was close, but boy, was this game almost unwatchable for stretches. Cowboys get to 5-7. The Giants fall to 2-10. Sure, Drew Lock played. I don't know. What do you want me to do with this game? It was a game that happened. It didn't matter to either team. We had the Cowboys minus 3.5 as our 1-point play, so we got that. Then Sunday night, the Packers beat the Dolphins 30-17. This is what we previewed on Wednesday. The cold weather. Could the Dolphins? Yeah, you beat the Raiders. Yeah, you beat the Patriots. Yeah, you beat the Rams. Okay. 3-game winning streak. You put yourself back in position in the AFC playoff race. Now, let's see. Step up in competition on the road. You've got the cold weather thing looming over you. Let's see how you handle it. Let's see what you do. Well, the Dolphins did exactly what we have seen them do in these situations time and time again under Mike McDaniel, under Tua Tagovailoa. This team struggles in the cold weather. Now, I don't think they played poorly. Tua threw for 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonnu Smith had a big game. They could move the ball. You can't spot a good team like the Packers a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. It's over. I don't care how good you are. You're not coming back from that. So the cold weather, I don't think totally impacted the Dolphins, but you've now allowed that cloud that hovers over you as a team. It remains. It's not going anywhere. It's not going away anytime soon. Packers move to 9-3, and like we said, they hold on to the Vikings. The Vikings hold on to the Lions. Everybody's just staying atop the NFC North, except the Bears, who, again, had some of the worst clock management skills I've seen in the history of professional football. And they cost us our 4-point play. Now, yeah, they had to kick the field goal. I'm not over this, okay? Because we've got a game tonight, a chance to go 4-2 this week in the Schubert 6. That's a big week. If we just remembered how to football, we could be talking about a 5-1 week. Not my fault. Bears' fault. Matt Eberflus's fault. Away. He got fired. Thomas Brown, the new coach there in Chicago. On Friday, it was the Chiefs. And did we not? We told you this. I don't want this entire edition of the NFL Rewind is kind of the I told you so edition. But we said the Chiefs on the do not bet list. We're just away from. If you want to bet them on the money line, fine. We're not betting them against the spread. They were 10.5-point favorites in this game. They had to recover a botched snap in the waning seconds to hold on and win this football game 19-7. Remember what they did a couple of weeks ago against the Broncos, blocking the field goal to win the game. This team, you want to take them on the money line since they're 11-1? That's fine. Until they show me a stretch of games where they cover these big numbers, I'm not doing it. I'm going to look right now. This is why I said we need a lot more time, Producer Dylan. That's why I said we're just going to blow past the break here. Because I want to see. I want to look. I want to know what next week's lines look like. I want to know in week 14 when do they play or are they on their bye this week? I need to know. Because I need to know what this number is to see if Vegas has figured this out yet. They play the Browns. What do we think this number opened at? This number, when I see this number, when this number comes out here in a couple of weeks or in a couple of days, I need to know what this number is. Because, oh no, they play the Browns next week. This is what I'm pushing too many buttons here while we're doing the show. It's difficult. The Chiefs are at home next Sunday night against the Chargers. Oh, wow. Some respect given to the Chargers. The Chiefs are only 4-point favorites this upcoming weekend against the Chargers. I'm still not betting it, but at least it's more respectable. At least we're back in reality after what we've seen from this team basically the entire season. The Chiefs beat the Raiders 19-17 to move to 11-1. I need somebody to check this for me. I think Kirk Cousins just threw another interception. I think that's what just happened. The Chargers beat the Falcons 17-13. Kirk Cousins throws 4 interceptions, including, and please, if you haven't done so already, and you haven't seen this from yesterday, do yourself a favor. Seek out the pick 6 that Kirk Cousins threw in this football game. You wouldn't throw this ball in the turkey bowl that you probably had with your friends and family before Thanksgiving. You wouldn't throw this with buddies. It was clear as day at the back of the drop. Oh, Kirk, don't throw it up there. The safety, the corner, he's just looming. This is going the other way. And yet he threw it. And it was a lollipop. And the thing just hung in the air for what felt like a decade. The Chargers went the other way. That was the touchdown that sealed the game. 17-13, the Chargers. It's not pretty, but they find ways to win. They are now 8-4 on the season. Somebody took my Steelers-Bengals game away from me, and they replaced it with the greatest show on turf. 44-38 was the final score of a Steelers-Bengals clash in the AFC North. It's over for the Bengals, officially. That is what we are going to do here in this NFL Rewind. We are going to declare the Bengals season over. They fall to 4-8. Their defense once again fails them. They put up 38 points. They allow Russell Wilson to go for 414 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. The defense scored for the Steelers. I mean, they just did everything in this football game to get to 9-3 in a game that, again, that's not AFC North football. That's not what we're used to, but a 44-38. And we told you, Steelers getting a mini bye, getting points on the road against a team that can't play defense. We told you this. We said that this is exactly what we thought this game was going to be. I don't think we said high scoring, but we said the Steelers were going to win the game outright, even getting the 3. They win 44-38. We talked earlier about a team that showed excellent game management skills. Remember a couple of weeks ago where we've gone so long, I need the music back again. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I yelled about Todd Bowles on Monday Night Football not going for 2 on the road against Kansas City and playing for overtime and how well it worked out for him. And we said it's just never good to do that in those spots. Like, even if you're at home, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't give Patrick Mahomes the chance to win the football game in overtime. Well, you know what? We had an example of a coach going in to tie the football game with a touchdown on the road. And what that coach decided to do, and that coach was Shane Steichen of the Indianapolis Colts. That coach said, we just scored to make it 24-23 in the waning seconds of this football game. You know what we're going to do? We're not sending the kicker out there. We're holding up the 2 fingers. And then we call the perfect play. Because this team, you got Jonathan Taylor. Yes, you do. But you have an extremely athletic quarterback. Get him the ball. Get him the blocking up front. Have somebody lead the way. Create the crease. And he gets in there. I thought it was the perfect play call on the spot. I thought it was the perfect coaching decision. And you know what? When you make the perfect decision, when you make the perfect play call, you get rewarded for it. The Colts get rewarded with a 25-24 victory to move to 7-6 to stay alive in the AFC playoff race. The Seahawks beat the Jets 26-21. The Jets had a 21-7 lead in this football game. Aaron Rodgers had a touchdown pass to take a 28-7 lead. He missed his receiver. I believe it was Garrett Wilson by about a half of an inch. The next play, he throws a pick 6 to Leonard Williams. It's 21-13. The Seahawks then score the final 13 points of the football game to win 26-21. The Jets fall to 3-9. The Seahawks remain in control of the NFC West at 7-5. The Commanders took care of business at home, 42-19. They needed it. We said they needed it. They were playing a bad football team. 42-19. They took care of business. The Texans hold on against the Jaguars 23-20. But what's going to be remembered from this game is the brutal hit that Trevor Lawrence took in this game that left him out with a concussion, got knocked out of the football game, the fight that ensued. And by the way, I don't care what fines come. I don't care what suspensions may come from this game. Good on everybody on the Jacksonville Jaguars, including Evan Ingram, who went out of his way. You're going to hit my quarterback like that? You're going to have a dirty hit like that on my quarterback, something that is supposed to be out of the game. The rules make it so that you cannot do that, and yet it was done anyway. Good on Evan Ingram. Good on the Jacksonville Jaguars for defending their quarterback like that. There's no place for that hit in the game, and glad that immediate ejection, and I guarantee you there's a suspension coming from that. The Rams go on the road. They keep their playoff hopes alive, 24-14. They go down to New Orleans, and they beat the Saints to move to 6-6. In overtime, man, I got to tell you, the decision to bench Bryce Young has really paid off for the Panthers, because the moment they brought him back into the starting lineup, now, it was maybe earlier than they expected. It was because Andy Dalton got into a car accident and they needed to turn things back over to Bryce Young. But he's looked good. 298 yesterday, a touchdown. He took them on the drive to tie the game, to force it into overtime. The Bucs end up winning it in overtime to keep their playoff hopes alive. But I think my takeaway here is the Panthers, they might have figured things out with Bryce Young. The Eagles, they're 10-2. We might have a new top team in the power rankings coming up. The Eagles are starting to impress me. They're starting to need to be taken a little bit more seriously. And then in the snowball, Josh Allen scores a touchdown that he threw, but he also caught it. And in fantasy, I was playing him. It didn't go well for me. It went well for the Bills, who locked up the AFC East. They moved to 10-2. The 49ers, we said the Bengals season was done. I'm ready to add the 49ers to that list. The 49ers season is done. We needed a little extra time here today for the Week 13 rewind. We got one more game tonight, and it is a big one because the Schubert 6 hangs in the balance for what would be an excellent week to what would just be another so-so week for us when the Browns take on the Broncos later on tonight. We will wrap up our number one of the lunch break here on the other side. It was an extension for James Conner. We'll get into that next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up hour number one of the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. Appreciate you joining us here on the Monday edition of the show. Been a fun one so far. A lot of football for us to react to from this past weekend. And it was before yesterday's game against the Vikings. It was actually, I believe it was late Saturday night where we learned that the Cardinals got a contract extension done. We talked about this being a bye-week thing, but took a little bit longer for the Arizona Cardinals and James Conner to come to terms on a 2-year contract extension. It is a 2-year deal that's going to keep him through the 2025 season and through the 2026 season, and it's worth $19 million. The $9.5 million AAV that the deal now has will make him the 7th highest-paid running back by annual value. And we said a couple of weeks ago when discussing this as a potential bye-week action item for the Cardinals, that this wasn't going to break the bank. It was going to be in line with what Chuba Hubbard got. It was going to be somewhat in line with what Derrick Henry got, Alvin Kamara. It was going to be in that kind of range, right? That was where he was going to sit. And we mentioned that any deal for James Conner would be short-term. It would be 2 years. I said maybe 3, but there was a plan here. James Conner was going to be here for whatever the contract extension length would be, but they drafted Trey Benson to sort of be his replacement, and I would not be surprised if by the end of this 2-year contract extension, if in the 2026 season, that the workload is flipped, and it's Trey Benson who gets the large majority of the workload, and it's James Conner as the complementary piece. That's where this is going. That's where this is trending towards. And so this deal is incredibly fair. It's incredibly reasonable. It's market value. It's not going to break the bank. It is rewarding a player who has done so much for this organization. It's not doing anything to sacrifice your future. I think this is all according to plan, and it is a well-deserved contract extension for James Conner. I think the biggest part out of all of this, the thing that I like the most out of all of this, is it's just an action item that's taken care of. It's done. We don't have to worry about this anymore. We don't have to do the song and dance of will they, won't they. We don't have to go into the offseason and say, hey, this is one of the priorities for the Arizona Cardinals. And, man, if you leave it up to chance, you leave it up to him hitting the open market, maybe a team offers more than you're comfortable, and now you're in a bidding war. Now maybe instead of it being 9.5, you have to pay him 11.5, and your budget's fine. You've got a lot of money. We've talked about they have the second most space this offseason out of any team in the NFL, but you just don't want to open yourself up to not getting a deal done sooner and costing yourself on the back end. And so that's what I like the most about this, is the Arizona Cardinals wanted to keep James Conner here. James Conner very clearly wanted to be here still. And so they got a in-season contract extension done, and now Monty Ossenfort and company and their front office really has one thing to worry about, and that's whether or not they want to sign Budda Baker to a contract extension. That's it. That's really the big ticket item that is left. And so if they've already made the decision, no, we're not going to extend Budda Baker, or if that's now going to be their next priority now that they got the James Conner deal done, we could very easily see this Arizona Cardinals team walk into the offseason. James Conner deal done, Budda Baker deal done one way or the other, their decision made, and they could have a clean slate and have their eyes solely focused on free agents, on trades, on improving the roster, and not have to worry about using the franchise tag or the franchise tag deadline or the will they, won't they, and other teams getting involved and all of the minutia that comes with a player that you would probably like to keep hitting free agency. And so this is right in line with where other guys in this stratosphere of player, of position, of age are getting. And when I saw the deal, it was exactly what we talked about. We said potentially a 3-year deal, maybe $27 million. This is right in line with where we thought this deal could end up. And kudos to the Cardinals for getting it done, because, look, at the end of the day, well, I don't know if long-term this is how the Cardinals are going to operate, but in 2024 and certainly last year, and I think probably for the first half of next year, this is their identity on offense. Their identity as a football team is James Conner. Normally your identity is a playbook, is a scheme, is a style. No, the identity of the Arizona Cardinals is embodied in number 6. It is embodied by James Conner. The coach of the football team has said that if he had to miss a game for some reason, James Conner would be the guy that he would want to have the headset on. The entire offense is predicated on running the football and play action, and everything about what they do offensively is because of James Conner's presence. You want to keep that guy around. You want that guy to be in your building. And if the cost is 2 years, $19 million, that's an easy contract to give out. That's an easy decision to make as an organization. You are flush with cap space. You are a team that is very suited to thrive this offseason with cap space. Why not get a deal done? Why not make the work easier for you this offseason? Why not put yourself in a position to cross off an item before you get to the offseason? Team has, according to overthecap.com, $113.4 million in cap space for next season. I'll say it again. $113.4 million in cap space. Now, the James Conner deal I don't think is officially in here yet, so subtract it by $9.5 million, although I'm sure there'll be some fun with numbers math here to maybe make it Got some void years on the back end, so you can spread out the cap and you can do all that cap magic. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say it's a full 9.5. They'll still have over $100 million in cap space to go out and add another wide receiver, add some investment into the pass rush, get some secondary help, add some depth offensive line pieces. It's why losing the last 2 weeks and maybe putting a halt to this postseason run is so disappointing, because 2024 could be the launching pad. It could be the start of something. Feels like the wheels are kind of falling off here the last couple of weeks. Now, still plenty of time left on the calendar. Still plenty of time left in this season. Really important game where if you win this weekend, you beat Seattle, everything's right back on the table. You're tied with them record-wise. You have 2 winnable games coming up on the other side of that against the Panthers, against the Patriots. If you win on Sunday, you're right back in it. But getting this done now, getting this deal done, and in-season extensions are rare. They're difficult. They're not easy to pull off. Some players don't want to have these conversations. Some players don't want to talk in the middle of the season. Some people just want to focus on football. Some players just want to focus on the task at hand. The Cardinals were able to get a deal done, and the big takeaway that I have from this, because it's a deal we talked about a couple of weeks ago, so I'm in favor of it. I think it's the right decision for the culture of this team, for that locker room. It's great for everybody. But when it comes to the front office, what I love about this is the proactive nature of what they were able to accomplish, of just getting something done and being able to. I mean, isn't it great when you're Christmas shopping and you're able to just, in the middle of September or October, you're just in the mall for something else and you go, man, that would be a great gift for blank. And you pick it up because you're there and it's on sale, or you just pick it up because you don't want to forget about it. And then when December rolls around and you're working through the list, you can say, oh, I've already got Tommy's gift this year. I've already got it. It's already done. I got him that dump truck from the toy store that he was always asking for. That's what the Cardinals did by signing James Conner to this extension. They crossed something off the list. They got something done that would have been, I don't want to say stressful, but it would have just been something added to their plate. Not a problem anymore. Not something they have to worry about. They're fine. They have James Conner for the next 2 seasons, and it is the perfect bridge to ultimately, I think, scale up Trey Benson's workload. And by the time this contract ages for James Conner, it is going to be a deal where he is going to be the complementary piece. And at $9.5 million and the cap going up every single year, I mean, the cap is projected to go up every single year for the foreseeable future with the new TV deal that's going to come in for the NFL and everything that they've got working, all the streaming money that they're. $9.5 million for a running back in 2 years is not going to look like it is that big of a deal. And right now, it is only the 7th highest number at the position. They didn't reset the market. They didn't overpay for James Conner. They paid him exactly what is a fair market value. Because, I mean, Chuba Hubbard signed a deal that was a 4-year, $33 million contract extension. But he's 25 years old. That deal is going to pay him through his age 29 season. James Conner was older. Derrick Henry signed a 2-year deal. I think it was 2 years, $16 million. Wasn't a lot of money. The Cardinals got a deal done with James Conner that puts him a little ahead of Ramondre Stevenson, a little ahead of David Montgomery, just behind Joe Mixon. Josh Jacobs makes more than him on an average per year basis. Alvin Kamara makes more than him. Saquon Barkley makes more than him. Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey. Derrick Henry signed a 2-year, $16 million contract, $8 million a season. He's 30. That's around what the going rate is. So good job by the Cardinals. They get this done. Maybe now they can focus on the Budda Baker contract extension and put themselves in a place where they have all of their in-house stuff done ahead of the offseason. Some of the major stuff done. Hour number 2 of the program, we'll take a quick timeout from the football. Some basketball to start hour number 2. The Suns, our topic. Hour number 2 of the lunch break next. KDUS AM 1060. We welcome you back in. Hour number 2 of the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. We've got you for another hour here on this Monday edition of the show. Going to take a quick time out from football to talk about basketball. And it's the same conversation that we just continue to have about this basketball team. And I can attempt to put a positive spin on it, and I can attempt to tell you that all that matters is what this team looks like when it gets to the postseason and it gets to the first round. But Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal return to the lineup for the Phoenix Suns. Since Durant has come back, the Suns are 2-1. But in the game the other day against the Nets, they lose Bradley Beal for an injury, and here we are again. Here we go again. We are having the same conversation about the Phoenix Suns that we had last year. This team, this group, can't stay healthy. It is a rarity to see all 3 members of the Suns' Big Three on the floor together at the same time. I mean, we were so excited because things were going sideways with Durant and Beal out. It just, you lose 2 stars on your team. You just can't recover from that. There's just, Devin Booker's great. He's awesome. He's a superstar. He can't do that. Not with the way the team is built, not with the way the team is designed. And so getting those guys back was such a sigh of relief. It felt so important to get those guys back. And then it looked so good in that game against the Lakers. They picked up right where they left off. It was as if those games in the middle didn't happen. It was right back to how the team started the year. It was right back to the excitement of how good this team could be. It was right back to the excitement of, could they make up ground in the Western Conference and get right back to the top where they were before Durant and Beal got hurt? All of it came right back to the table. All of it was right there in front of us. And we didn't even make it through 2 games. Because in that second game, now, mind you, they beat the Golden State Warriors the other night. And that was a nice win. They get to 2-1 since Durant returned to the lineup. But in that game against the Brooklyn Nets, they lose Bradley Beal to an injury. And so here we go again. It's not, it's normal to go to the Phoenix Suns depth chart and to see Bradley Beal with the day-to-day next to his name. And now Yusuf Nurkic has the day-to-day next to his name. And so, yeah, you're 2-1 since Durant has come back. But here we are once again discussing a Bradley Beal injury. We are once again discussing how he's got a lower leg injury. He was asked about if it was his left ankle or if it was calf. He said both. It was the calf that forced him to miss the 5 straight games. And in this ESPN story about the injury, it brings up the most important point about Bradley Beal. Because when he's on the court, he's awesome. In that game before he got hurt, 17 points on 8 of 14 shooting. But over the past 3.5 seasons, Bradley Beal has never played in more than 53 of the 82 regular season games. That's the reality of the Phoenix Suns, is they have a player who, best case scenario, isn't going to be available for 29 games of the regular season. Best case scenario, you're going to have him for 53 of 82. You've already missed Durant for a couple of weeks. Can you afford, if Durant goes down again and Beal's also out and we do this all over again? It's easy to say early in the season, oh, plenty of time. Rather have this happen now than later. It's fair. But if it happens both now and later, there's not enough time. If this happens in the second half of the season, if this happens with 12 games to go, and they go on another stretch where they lose 6 or 7 in a row, I don't know if they can recover from that. I don't know if that's a hole that they can dig out of. And so we can talk about what it looks like when they're on the court together. We can talk about what it looks like when everything is full steam ahead. How often do we get to have those conversations? Because this show, for a week and a half, 2 weeks, had to do the same thing every time we talk about the Phoenix Suns. That doesn't really matter. Durant's not out there. Beal's not out there. It's not a true evaluation. It's not, I don't want to say it's not real, but it's not real. if this is what they're going to look like, then it doesn't really matter. The season is toast. They're done. Start thinking about what a future without Kevin Durant or without Bradley Beal or without Devin Booker begins to look like, because we need to start having conversations about trading these guys. That's what happens if these guys aren't on the court together. That's what happens. That's where the mind is left to wander. But I can't come on the air and talk about a team if Durant and Beal are off the court and they're not healthy, because what is this team supposed to be then? What are the expectations of a Devin Booker-led Phoenix Suns team that doesn't have Bradley Beal, that doesn't have Kevin Durant? And oh, by the way, Jusuf Nurkic is in and out of the lineup on a pretty regular basis. What's the ceiling for that team? 500? So when that's the conversation that we're going to have potentially a majority of the time, and we're looking at a team right now who is the 8th seed. So yes, they've played 19 games. There's a lot of runway left. There's a lot of runway left. But here is what I can tell you for an almost certainty on December 2nd. We're going to have this conversation again. We might have this conversation again a couple more times this season, where Beal misses a stretch of games, Durant misses a stretch of games, Booker misses a stretch of games. We're not done. This is what you signed up for. And so, unfortunately, my message to you here today is you got to ride the roller coaster, man. This is what the Suns signed up for. This is how the Suns designed their team. So ride the roller coaster. Enjoy the highs, enjoy the lows, enjoy the peaks, enjoy the valley. Everything about this are going to be the ultimate highs, like we saw the other night against the Lakers, like we saw at the start of the season, and it's going to be the ultimate lows, where you feel terrible watching this team lose 6 in a row. When you feel terrible watching Bradley Beal leave the game with an injury and going, oh no, here we go again. This is what the Suns signed up for. This is what they decided to put out on the floor when they made the decision to run it back. So, unfortunately, this is what this team's going to be. They're going to be healthy some of the time. They're not going to be healthy for some stretches. You got to hope that those stretches happen early and they have the time to dig out of this hole, because right now they're playing in the play-in tournament. That is where they would be right now. That is where a team that has these 3 players leading the charge would be right now. It's because they're not in the lineup. Coming up on the other side, we thought the conversation was put to bed. We thought it was over. We thought it was never going to be talked about again. Did it restart yesterday in the final moments? That's next in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the show, The Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060, 480-864-1060. That's how you can join the show. You can also join us on YouTube. Just search KDUS AM 1060 over there and hop into the live comments. And make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app so you can take the show and the station with you on the go. Maybe you're not in your car all day and you want to listen to the great programming that we have here on the station. Well, you can do so via the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can also listen live on KDUSAM1060.com. The Cardinals lost their second in a row yesterday, falling 23-22 to the Minnesota Vikings. And I think, mainly because I got into this with some people on Twitter yesterday, that there is a conversation that some people say shouldn't be had. Some people, I put myself into this camp, believe it's valid to have this conversation about Kyler Murray and his performance yesterday in the game. Now, let me make something abundantly clear at the top, and I'll probably reiterate it a couple of times throughout this conversation. But let's just set the base level here. I don't blame yesterday's loss on Kyler Murray. There's a lot that went wrong in that game yesterday. The defense failed them in the fourth quarter and in the second half. I didn't love the coaching style of taking the points all the time and just trusting that the defense would hold once again. When we've said on this show that this defense it's kind of smoke and mirrors a little bit, just in terms of the players. It's not smoke and mirrors in terms of the performance. They've been performing well over the last month. They're not, getting away with stuff, but the players, the talent level, it just didn't feel like it was sustainable. It's why we pushed so hard for them to do something at the deadline. The defense failed them. I didn't love the game planning. The offense as a whole, and it isn't on Kyler. There's also some Drew Petzing conversations to be had about some of the play calling and decision making. There's just a lot, right? It's not all on one person yesterday's game. You had a 19-6 lead. That's in large part because Kyler Murray, right? Just took what the defense gave him, put the team in position. They didn't score touchdowns, but they settled for field goals. And when they needed it, he got the touchdown to Marvin Harrison Jr. to take the 19-6 lead. Okay. When you have a franchise quarterback, and what I mean by that is when you have a quarterback that you build around, when you have a quarterback who is the focal point of what you do, when you have a quarterback that you're not looking at the draft, you're not looking at free agents, you're not looking to explore trade, this is your guy. This is the person that you are going to go down with, right? We're going to win with this person or we're going to go down trying. When you have that franchise quarterback comes through in moments like yesterday. That despite having the 19-6 lead, despite blowing the 19-6 lead, despite trailing 23-22, a quarterback who is a franchise quarterback, who is the long-term guy for your team, he's supposed to come through in that moment. He is supposed to do enough to get the special teams unit on the field to attempt the field goal. Now, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know if Chad Ryland would make it. He missed one earlier in the game from outside of, I think it was like 45 yards. So it's not a guarantee. But a franchise quarterback does the work to put his team in that position. Because I don't think anybody is going to mistake the quarterback that played on the other side of the field yesterday as a franchise quarterback. I don't think anybody is going to confuse Sam Darnold with Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. Sam Darnold's not going to be confused with any of those guys. But you know what Sam Darnold did when he got the ball with 3 minutes to go, down 22-16? You know what Sam Darnold did? He led his team down the field in a gotta-have-it moment. The game's over if they don't do anything there. The game is over. He took his team down the field in a gotta-have-it moment and put his team ahead. He's not being mistaken with a franchise quarterback, yet he got the job done. And I know Kyler Murray in his career has 13 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter or overtime. Those past 13 don't matter. What mattered was yesterday. What mattered is the season's in the balance. The division's in the balance. The playoffs are on the line. Making sure that you don't have a 2-game losing streak is on the line. A game that was yours for the taking with a 19-6 lead. You've watched that slip away. This is your chance to redeem all of that, to pick up your defense, who's been great for the last month or so. Your chance to pick them up for just allowing that drive to take the lead. And you didn't need 6. You didn't need to go the distance. You had to get yourself into field goal range. And Kyler Murray yesterday couldn't do that. Am I blaming him for the loss yesterday? Absolutely not. Am I saying that Kyler Murray needs to be benched? Absolutely not. Am I saying that the Cardinals need to think long and hard about Kyler Murray being their future quarterback? No, I am not ready to have that conversation yet. But I do think the door opened yesterday. You got to have that drive. If you're the big boy franchise quarterback of your team, you got to have that drive. You got to have that moment. You got to pick your defense up. You got to find a way to make the plays to at least put the field goal kicker on the field with a chance to win the football game. If he misses it, so be it. But you put your team in the position. Instead, it was a disaster of a drive for the Cardinals. Couldn't get anything going. Couldn't even flirt with the idea of getting into field goal range. They couldn't get it done. And so, I think I said in one of the first shows that we did, way back in October, I said, we've put to bed the conversation about Kyler Murray's future. We no longer have that conversation. He's proven that he's the guy. He's proven that he's taken to this offense. He's proven that he can run this system and that he is somebody that can lead this team to victories. And I still, ultimately, as we sit here today on December 2nd, I still believe that. But the door opened yesterday. Because it wouldn't happen every time, but Joe Burrow would have that drive. Patrick Mahomes would have that drive. Josh Allen would have that drive. I saw, and maybe this is the biggest indicator of why I'm so frustrated at what happened yesterday. It didn't lead to a victory. Bryce Young had that drive. Bryce Young led the Carolina Panthers, who are out. They're toast. Their season does not matter. He led them on that drive. He tied up the football game. He gave his team a chance to win in overtime. Kyler Murray couldn't do that yesterday. And I'll give you an example of somebody who's done this to the extreme. Aaron Rodgers is known for doing this. The Jets have had the ball with a chance to win in the exact situation that Kyler Murray was in yesterday. The ball, less than 2 minutes, chance to win the football game. Aaron Rodgers, 0-5 this season in those moments. You think that's a large part of the reason why the Jets are 3-9 this season? Because they can't come through in those moments? Sam Darnold did it the week prior in overtime for the Vikings. Sam Darnold did it yesterday against the Cardinals. They didn't have a lead the entire game yesterday. They were battling back from the word go. Now, it was 3-0, 6-3, 9-6. I mean, it was not an insurmountable lead, but down 19-6, Sam Darnold locked in and took this team down the field multiple times and won the football game. Kyler Murray got the ball, trailing for the first time in the game, and the offense folded in on themselves. That's a problem. Again, not blaming Kyler Murray for the loss. Kyler Murray is not the reason why the Cardinals lost yesterday 23-22, or he's not the overarching reason why they lost yesterday. But it is incredibly fair to talk about Kyler Murray not coming through in that moment. It's incredibly fair to say, if you want to be taken seriously as a franchise, if you want to be taken seriously as the quarterback, as a franchise quarterback of a team, you got to have those moments. You got to have those moments in seasons that matter. Because, listen, we'll use the Bryce Young analogy again. It's kind of easy to do that when you're 3-8, 3-9, and you stink. You got nothing to play for. If you throw the back-breaking interception, who cares? You already stink anyway. It doesn't really matter, right? You suck as an organization anyway. So if you throw the pick six, everyone's just going to be like, that's what we expect. If you do it, everyone's going to be like, of course you do it now because we're out of it and the season doesn't matter. It means a lot more when you do it in games like yesterday. And the Cardinals couldn't do that. Kyler Murray couldn't do that. So we thought this conversation was put to bed. I don't think so. I think we've taken it out of the attic, like that old box of clothes, like I mentioned earlier. It's back out. Now, it's just a box. It's sitting on the floor. We haven't gone through it yet. We haven't opened it up. But A box that we thought was away up in the attic. We found it yesterday. We found it. And we took it out. And maybe we'll get to it next week. Maybe we'll get to it in 2 weeks. Or maybe we'll decide, you know what? I don't even care what's in the box. Put it back up. Put it back up in the attic. That might be the conversation we have. But you know what? Now it's a gotta-have-it game on Sunday. Because you fall to 6-7. You fall 2 games back of Seattle when they have the tiebreaker against you. You would be losers of 3 in a row. We called the season's over for the Bengals, for the 49ers. I'll say it here on a Monday. They lose on Sunday to Seattle, their season's toast. So that's the pressure you put on yourself. And I saw yesterday a team that in that moment didn't necessarily handle the pressure the way that they're supposed to. So a conversation that we thought was completely over, that we thought was in the rearview mirror, I think the door opened yesterday for that conversation to be right back on the table. Can Kyler Murray come through in a big moment for this team? He's going to have to on Sunday. Coming up on the other side, ASU will be playing for the Big 12 championship this Saturday. What's the biggest reason that they've gotten there? We'll talk about that next in the lunch break. KDUS, AM 1060. Welcome back. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Got you for another half hour here on the Monday edition of the show. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving weekend. I enjoyed the time off, enjoyed spending time with the family, enjoyed the food. Did not have turkey this year. We had some sirloin meat. We had some pork belly bites. There were some turkey legs that were brought a little bit later in the day. I did not consume those. I was too busy with the mac and cheese, with the mashed potatoes and gravy. It was nice to take a time out, watch some just fantastic football on Thursday. It was just riveting stuff. And then spend some time with the family. It was nice. Now, we've now turned the calendar to December. And I got to tell you, I know that there's about a month between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's not going to feel like that because I'm already like looking at my calendar and planning things out for the remainder of the year. And I just know that this week is going to, or these next couple of weeks are going to fly. I mean, producer Dylan's got finals that he's working on. He looks so thrilled about it now that I brought it up. He seems very excited about that. So he's hoping that this couple weeks fly by so he can be done with finals. He can be done with school. He can enjoy the holidays. But it is that time of year where it blinks, right? I mean, Halloween felt like it was yesterday, and now here we are already discussing the holidays coming up and Christmas and New Year's, and it is crazy how the end of the year seems to fly by in comparison to the first 9 months. What has not flown by, what has been an enjoyable ride this entire season, has been ASU's football campaign that ended on Saturday. At least the regular season did. They've got more games to play, at least one more, if not a couple more. They beat UofA. They finished their regular season 10-2, and they punched their ticket to the Big 12 championship game. So it's pretty simple. They're going to play a game on Saturday, and then they're either going to win, and they're going to play in the college football playoff, or they're going to lose, and it's going to be a pretty nice bowl game set up for them. That's how this is going to go. They have at least 2 more games left this season, if not more, depending on how Saturday goes and how a potential college football playoff berth will go. I'll tell you right now, though, the disrespect is still real. The AP poll, the disrespect is still there. All these projections still have them as the 11 or the 12 seed, don't have them getting one of those buys. The disrespect is still real after what they have done. And we'll see. I will save my anger for Wednesday's show because I'm not going to get angry about something that hasn't happened yet. We'll see where the College Football Playoff Committee ranks this ASU team entering this Iowa State game on Wednesday. They'll do so Tuesday night. We'll react to it Wednesday. But I got to tell you, if after all of this, if they beat Iowa State and they win the Big 12 title and they add another ranked victory to their schedule and they don't get a bye, I'm going to be pretty annoyed when we come in here next Monday. But that's for a future show. This ASU team is playing for a Big 12 championship game on Saturday. They will be in Jerry World, their first year in the conference, playing for the conference championship. What a wild sentence to say in 2024. But they have done it. And I guess the question to ask here is, what's the biggest reason for it? What is the thing that you would point to say the Sun Devils are 10-2, the Sun Devils are playing for a Big 12 title, the Sun Devils are almost college football playoff bound because what would you fill in the blank with? And there's a lot of candidates. And I don't want to take away from the other candidates by putting it all on this one person. But to me, it's one person and one person only. Because he should be coach of the year. Kenny Dillingham is the reason this team is 10-2. Kenny Dillingham is the reason this team is playing for a Big 12 championship game. That doesn't mean Cam Scatterbo hasn't played an incredibly important role. And if this team does go on a run where it's winning the Big 12 title on Saturday and they might win a college football playoff game and they might pull off an upset or two along the way, it's going to be because Cam Scatterbo is playing and healthy and is being a difference maker and is a bulldozer and is running downhill. Please do not take anything I'm about to say about Kenny Dillingham as knocks on Cam Scatterbo or Sam Levitt or Jordan Tyson or this defense. But you want to know why all of that stuff works together? Do you want to know why that recipe has added up to being 10-2? Because of the culture that Kenny Dillingham has set. He took a team, it was a barren wasteland. He took a team that was going nowhere quickly. And his first year was rough. There were bumps. And in year 2, he has turned this team around and he has put this team one win away from the college football playoff. And you want to know why I say it's Kenny Dillingham? Because if you ask him, you hear the honesty in his voice. Because he said, I didn't expect this. We're ahead of schedule. He was asked after the game yesterday, or on Saturday, about getting to 10 wins. And just talked about how would he ever have expected to get to 10 wins? You know, earlier in the season, could he ever have envisioned this season ending in 10 wins? And he answered about as honestly as you can get. He said, no, because you wouldn't have asked me that. You wouldn't have asked me if this team was going to be a 10-win team the second or third week of the season. You wouldn't have asked me that after we were, you know, 1 game 3 or 1 game 4. That was not on the table. It was not on anybody's radar. It was not what we were expected to do. Again, predicted to finish last in the Big 12. 1 win away from being first in the Big 12. And it wasn't some mid-season turnaround. They just slowly, over the course of the season, took care of business. They have 2 losses this season. One of their losses is a game in which their quarterback, their starting quarterback, didn't play. So other than that, they have 1 loss on their calendar, playing just as well as any other team in college football, basically, throughout the course of the season. Why? Because their coach has them engaged. And do you want to know why I default to Kenny Dillingham? Because culture matters. Your players believing in the message that you are selling matters, and that can only come from a head coach who's authentic, who is real, who can connect with his players. You saw the way he acted after the Utah interview, and I know that was probably to a lot of people in other markets, in other cities, in other programs. Their head coach wouldn't do that, right? Would Kalen DeBoer do that in Alabama? Would Ryan Day do that at Ohio State? No. But do you want to know why the players play as hard as they do for Kenny Dillingham? Do you want to know why this city right now is backing this program the way that they are right now? Because that's real. That's authentic. That's something you can get behind. Authenticity sells. Authenticity matters. You want a player in today's college football to stick it out and run through a wall for you, run through a wall for your program? You got to be willing to run through the wall first. And that's what Kenny Dillingham does for his team every single week. And as the pressure has continued to mount, and we talked about it, there was no pressure early in the season. There was no pressure when the Big 12 campaign started. There was no pressure on this team. The pressure really got here around the Kansas State game. And I wouldn't even say that because you needed Kansas to beat BYU in order for all of this to unpack itself. But it did. And they walked into Manhattan, Kansas, and they beat Kansas State. And then the pressure mounted up again. And they had to play at home against BYU. And all they heard all week long, because I said it, I know other radio shows in this market said it, I know other podcasters said it, I know other people used column inches to say it. It was not a secret. It was the most important game ASU had played in over a decade. It was going to be the most important home game in over a decade. You couldn't run from that. You couldn't avoid that. They didn't. They ran towards it. They ran through it. And then they played the U of A. And then they played a territorial cup game that mattered for one side and didn't matter for the other. And it was on the road, and it was traveling to a team that probably the bulletin board material was easy. Go ruin their season. Go make sure they can't continue this journey. You can be the footnote, because we said it. I asked producer Dylan the question. I asked you, the listener, the question. What would you rather have had? The BYU win and a U of A loss, or a BYU loss and a U of A win? And it was pretty overwhelming. The U of A win mattered more to people because you don't want to give them that. In a down season for them, a season where they missed expectations, you didn't want to hand them. They were the reason your season ended. Well, guess what? You didn't. You went down there, you took care of business as the pressure continued to mount because your coach stayed even-keeled throughout the process. So the reason why the Sun Devils are playing on Saturday, there's a lot of them. The quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, the offensive line, the defense, the coaching. There's so many reasons. But at the end of the day, all of it came together because the coach put them in this position to succeed, and they have thrived. He hasn't asked them to do too much. He has not put too much on their plate, and he has had their back every step of the way. And so they are willing to run through that brick wall. And when he makes a play call, there's no second guessing it. When he has a decision to go for it on fourth down, there's no second guessing it because they believe in their coach. That's a scary thing for other teams in college football. It should be. It should be a scary thing for Matt Campbell and Iowa State on Saturday. If this team gets into the college football playoff, whoever they draw in the first round, that should be scary. Do I think ASU is going to win a national championship? No, I do not think so. I do not think they're on the level of an Oregon. They're on the level of an Ohio State. They're on the level of these SEC schools. But the perks of having a season like this is you've exceeded expectations. And we have said it all along. The goals you have as a team in college football, make your conference championship and win your conference championship and play for the college football playoff. ASU has done more than we could have ever asked for. And if it ends on Saturday in Arlington, Texas, so be it. They would have put themselves in a position that beforehand nobody thought was possible. If they win on Saturday, it's all icing on top of the cake if they play for the college football playoff. It's all icing on top of the cake. And the reason why it is all possible is because ASU made the right hire, and that guy that they hired, Kenny Dillingham, has poured his heart and soul into this university. And you don't think that matters? You don't think it matters when you walk into a program like Kenny Dillingham did, that you got to give it your all? Because look where they were. They were at the bottom. You got to get people to buy back in, right? It's hard to win football games. It's easy to take over at Alabama, though. It's easy to take over at Ohio State. Those are perennial winners. They have the backing. They have the institutional support. It's easy, I'll put in air quotes, to take over those programs and just hit the ground running. It's difficult to take over a program that is in the state that ASU was in when Kenny got here. It is difficult to take over that program and get people to buy into what you're doing. And I'm not talking players. I'm not talking coaches. I'm talking fans, boosters, investors, the city at large, to get those groups to buy in, and then also get the players to buy in, to get the coaches to buy in, to all be rowing the boat in the right direction. That takes a lot. He's done it in less than a season, because in year 2, ASU is playing for the Big 12 championship game. And so Sam Leavitt deserves all the credit in the world because he's running this offense, and he is a large part of why they are winning football games. Cam Scatterbo, you can tell when he's out there the difference that he's able to make. Jordan Tyson, having a number 1 wide receiver, it matters. It all matters. Every single part of this team is why they are here right now. But the person who took the recipe and has cooked this meal to perfection is the head coach of this program. Because this head coach somehow in year 2 has his team 1 win away from the college football playoff. So if you want one reason why they're here, why they're playing on Saturday, why I am already jacked up for this game, it's because of the job that Kenny Dillingham has done, and he needs to be on the short list for Coach of the Year, and I think he should be the favorite. I'm sorry, but you were projected to finish last. You have a chance to win the Big 12 championship. What more could you ask for? On the other side, we wrap up this edition of The Lunch Break. It is The Leftovers, KDUS, AM 1060. That's right. Back to wrap up this edition of the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. And it's not going to come as much of a surprise, but we did get the official word, and it just the bucket of cold water on all of the praise I just did in the last segment. Jordan Tyson has been ruled out indefinitely, according to Kenny Dillingham, so he's not going to play this Saturday in the Big 12 championship game. That's a huge blow. That's the number one receiver for this team. He's been a difference maker over the last month plus. He's just a game wrecker. He just changes the way everybody has to defend, and so it's a blow. It's a piece of adversity that this team is now going to face, but there's one thing I've learned is we're not counting out the Kenny Dillingham, Sam Leavitt, Cam Scatterbo-led Sun Devils just yet. Okay, they're going to play a game on Saturday with a decent chance to be going to the college football playoff. But the unfortunate news, Jordan Tyson, who's had just an incredible season for this program, out indefinitely after suffering that injury on Saturday against UofA. We kind of touched on it during the NFL Rewind, but we'll do it here because there's a really important Monday Night Football game tonight. Not because it means anything for the Arizona Cardinals. It means everything for the show. Because the Schubert 6, we got our 1-point play against Dallas. Dallas minus 3.5 against the Giants. We got our 3-point play. You gave me points with the Steelers against the Bengals. That felt like easy money. So that's 4 points right there. We got our 6-point play, which was the Packers minus 3.5 against the Dolphins. We lost our 4-point play. Don't get me started on the Bears and their coaching malpractice at the end of the game. And we lost our Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime touchdown for 2 points. But our 5-point play is still active tonight. Broncos minus 5.5 against the Browns. We win that. It'll be a 4-2 week, so we'll be back positive. If you follow along with the Schubert 6, a win tonight would give us a positive week. We would have a winning week. Week 13 in the NFL. So that is what we are going to keep an eye on tonight. The Broncos minus 5.5 against the Browns. The number's up to Broncos minus 6, but when we took it on Wednesday's show, it was Broncos minus 5.5. So we've got 10 points in the bag already. We are trying to make it 15 out of 21. We are trying to make it a 4-2 record. If not, it's another 3-3 week, just more treading water, and I'll be even more angry at the Bears for not kicking that field goal to force overtime, because that could have been our path to a really big week. So we'll keep an eye on that. But so if you have followed along, we still have one more sweat tonight to finish off what would be a really nice week to go 4-2 and maybe get the ball rolling for some momentum in the right direction for the Schubert 6. So that Monday Night Football game tonight, the Broncos minus 5.5 against the Browns. The Broncos trying to keep up in the AFC playoff picture. I believe they still hold that final spot in the AFC wild card. They are right now the 7 seed at 7-5. A win would keep them 2 games clear of the Colts, would also keep them 2 games clear in the loss column of the Dolphins. A loss puts everything back in play, puts the Colts 1 game back, puts the Dolphins only 1 game back in the loss column. And with the Ravens' loss, a Denver win, they would be tied record-wise with the Ravens at 8-5. So a win huge for them. A loss opens a lot of doors there in the AFC for teams trying to chase down the Denver Broncos. A couple of baseball moves that could be telling for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'll see if I can make the case on why these deals make some sense for the Diamondbacks. The Mets last night agreed to a deal with Frankie Montas, 2 years, $34 million, so $17 million per year. Last year, he signed a 1-year, $16 million deal with the Reds, was traded at the deadline to the Brewers, was much better with the Brewers, made 30 starts. He's been oft injured, just hasn't been a guy to put together a full season in a really long time. Did so last year, parlayed that into a multi-year deal, 2-year, $34 million. So keep that number in mind, $17 million AAV for Frankie Montas, who, by the way, had an ERA last year. And ERA is not the be-all, end-all, but an ERA last year of 4.84 over 150 innings last season. So that's the going rate for Frankie Montas. And then the Cubs this morning, signed Matthew Boyd to a 2-year, $29 million deal. He's 33 years old. He went 2-2 in 8 starts with a 2.72 ERA for Cleveland after recovering from Tommy John surgery. So returned from the Tommy John surgery, made 8 starts for Cleveland, and then made 3 starts in the postseason for them, and then parlayed that into a 2-year, $29 million deal. So $14.5 million for a 33-year-old guy coming off Tommy John surgery who made a couple of starts at the end of the season, and then $17 million for a guy who had an ERA close to 5 last year. The going rate for middle-of-the-road starting pitchers is incredibly high. That's the takeaway that I want you to have right now, because Frankie Montas probably not really worth $17 million a season. Now, there's a player opt-out at the end of the year, so if he has a good season, he should very likely opt out of that deal. But $17 million for a guy who had an ERA close to 5, has been inconsistent for most of his career. Matthew Boyd's coming off Tommy John surgery. He's 33 years old. He only made 8 starts last year. He got $14.5 million a season. That's the going rate for a back end of the rotation starter. Matthew Boyd's not going to be a frontline starter for the Chicago Cubs. They've got Justin Steele. They've got Shota Imanaga. They got Jameson Taillon. They've got some nice front-end starters. Matthew Boyd's going to slide right in there, probably as the number 3, number 4 starter, back end of the rotation, a guy that you just hope can, every 5th day, take the ball, give you innings, just give you a chance to win. You're not looking to win the Cy Young with Matthew Boyd, but just a nice rotation piece. So what the Mets are looking for Frankie Montas. I think if at the end of their offseason they want Frankie Montas to be their number 3 starter after they make all of their moves, trades, free agent signings, whatever the case may be, they want him to be their number 3 or number 4 starter, basically be the Jose Quintana role that they had a year ago. But that's the going rate. So when we talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks, that's what they're paying Zach Gallen in arbitration next season. It's why trading him is such a hot-button issue. It's why the money that they gave to Jordan Montgomery, you're paying Jordan Montgomery $20-something million this season to give you what the Cubs are going to ask Matthew Boyd to give them, what the Mets are going to ask Frankie Montas to give them. That's what you're giving to Jordan Montgomery. You signed Eduardo Rodriguez to a long-term deal to give you these types of innings. So if one of your offseason wish list items for the Arizona Diamondbacks was to add another starter to the back end of this rotation, I hate to break it to you, I don't know where it's coming from. That's the going rate for back end rotation help. If you have anything that a team can look at in StatCast or analytics or in your under the hood numbers, if there's anything in there that a team thinks, man, if we just work with that, we can turn this guy into something productive, you're going to get $15 million a season. And if that's what the going rate is for these guys, what's Max Fried going to get? What's Jack Flaherty going to get? What's Corbin Burns going to get? What are these frontline starters going to get? This is how we'll tie it back into the Diamondbacks. If teams don't want to pay those prices, if teams don't want to pay $25 to $30 million a year for Max Fried or for Corbin Burns, or if because Frankie Montas got $17 million, maybe Sean Manaea is going to ask for $30 million a season. Maybe teams don't want to pay that price. Maybe the phone for Mike Hazen starts to ring. And maybe there are teams that are willing to, rather than spend the $30 million on starters that are in their 30s, they would rather trade and extend Zach Gallen and give up the prospects for him. Now, he's a Scott Boras client, so you have to think free agency's on the horizon, and he's paying attention to what Corbin Burns is going to get. He's paying attention to what Max Fried's going to get. But this is the point I'm trying to make. Is Zach Gallen in the long-term plans for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Frankie Montas got $17 million a season. You're paying, at least according to arbitration estimates, $14 million this upcoming season for Zach Gallen. Corbin Burns is probably going to get north of $30 million a season. Max Fried's probably going to touch $30 million a season. What's Zach Gallen going to ask for next offseason? 25 to 30? Maybe north of 30, depending on the year that he has. If he goes into free agency, the going rate for starting pitching is so high right now. It's why being able to develop your own starting pitchers internally and have them under cost-controlled contracts is so important. The best bargain that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to have on their roster in 2025 is Merrill Kelly's $7 million. That's the best bargain you can have in all of baseball. You're paying $7 million for a number 2 starter that can give you really good production. And if Zach Gallen goes down, he can be the ace of your staff. And it costs you $7 million. Matthew Boyd just got $14.5 million from the Cubs. He got double what Merrill Kelly got. Is Matthew Boyd double the pitcher Merrill Kelly is? Absolutely not. Frankie Montas just got $17 million a year from the Mets. $10 million more than what the Diamondbacks are paying Merrill Kelly. Is Frankie Montas a $10 million a year better pitcher than Merrill Kelly? Absolutely not. So the Diamondbacks kind of got ahead of this by signing Eduardo Rodriguez, by signing Jordan Montgomery. But if they want to try to add some depth, they can't shop in this bin. I don't think they have the resources, because this, I think, upends everything. I did not expect Frankie Montas to get $17 million a season. Matthew Boyd getting $14. If you are a starting pitcher who has a healthy arm, you are going to get at least $15 million a season. I don't care what your ERA is. Your ERA could be a 6, and you're going to get more money than people probably think you should. That is the market right now. That is where we're at. So the starting pitching market in baseball starting to maneuver a little bit. You still have the big names out there. You still have Corbin Burns. You still have Max Fried. So you're still going to be paying attention to those names. But you're starting to see some activity there. I think we are going to start to see some activity in the hitting market, because I believe we are right around the corner from Juan Soto making his decision. The first offers have been in. Teams have already started to bump their offers. The winter meetings are right around the corner. So we are getting close to that happening, which should open the market up for the rest of the hitters. But you got Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, Sean Manaea, all still out there. Blake Snell just got $34 million a season AAV. Michael Wacha signed an extension with the Royals a little bit ago, $17 million a season. Yusei Kikuchi signed a deal with the Angels, 3 years, $63, $21 million a season. Matthew Boyd just got $14.5 million a season. Now, Fangraphs crowdsources contracts. They ask people what they think these players are going to get. I just want to point this out to everybody. Matthew Boyd, people thought were going to get a 2-year, $18 million contract. He got 2 for $29. People thought Montas was going to get 2 for $26. He got 2 for $34. Snell, they thought 4 for $120. He got 5 for $182. Kikuchi, 3 for $54. He got 3 for $63. Right now, the market is inflated for starting pitchers. So if you're looking for the Diamondbacks to sign somebody in this bucket, in this Montas, Matthew Boyd bucket, maybe get them on a cheap deal, I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be quality starters that are signing for less than $12 million. And so I just don't think that's a market that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to be able to play in. They're still going to keep their focus on pursuing a bat. They're going to continue to pursue their focus on relief pitching. That market hasn't really thought out yet. Not really any of the big names moved here. Jeff Hoffman's still out there. Kirby Yates, David Robinson, Clay Holmes, Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, all the big names, all the guys who had big years last year for their teams, all still out there. That market has not moved in the way that the starting pitching market is starting to move, the way that I think the hitting market is going to start to move. And we've got just a few short days until the winter meetings get underway. And I bet you that there will be a lot of activity that goes down at the winter meetings in baseball. We are 6 days away from the winter meetings in Dallas, Texas. I never forget. I always forget where it is. They rotate it all the time. But it's in Dallas, Texas this year. And so there's going to be a lot of movement, I think, that goes down at the winter meetings this year. It's going to be very buzzworthy. But if you had hopes of the Diamondbacks adding a starting pitcher, I don't think it's going to happen, because these prices right now are absolutely insane. We appreciate you joining us here on this Monday edition of the show. Hope you all make it a great rest of your Monday. Appreciate producer Dylan, all that you do. We will talk to you tomorrow. See ya.